Hi, I'm Lucy and I'm totally not a robot. In this video I'll be unboxing a Bambu Lab P1S 3D printer. But first, I want to talk a little bit about how I got it. So I've ordered the printer itself and some accessories on the Bambu Lab EU store. The total price was over €1,000 and the only shipping option was snail mail, costing €15. The printer and the accessories were sent as separate packages, on different days. It took 6 days for the package with accessories to arrive, and I had to go and collect it at a post office. The printer itself took a little less, just 4 days. I was able to see the delivery guy open the van, and this is how the package was loaded, and this is also how it was handed over to me. Let me quickly fix that. Okay, much better. Luckily, the printer is very well packaged, so I don't think this is going to cause any trouble. But overall, a big thumbs down for the shipping experience. It would be nice to send the whole order as a single package. It would also be nice to see some real shipping options, not just the cheapest one, especially for such a fragile and rather expensive thing. To give some comparison, it was possible for me to order from a local reseller, with next-day delivery, using a proper courier service. It would have cost extra, a little bit over €100, but looking back, it does sound like a fair deal, and I should have done that. But enough whining, in the end I was able to get everything in one place, so let's start by unboxing the accessories. Just to be clear, these are not standard accessories that come with every printer, I had to pay extra for them. Let's use a little help from a knife to get inside the box, and here we go. The first thing that I got is a smooth print plate, because by default, the printer comes with a textured one. Next, a bunch of hot ends with different sizes. By default the printer comes with a 0.4mm nozzle, but 0.2, 0.6, and 0.8mm nozzles are also available. Last but not least, a bunch of filament. I got multiple colors, but in the end they are all the same, so I don't think there is a need to show them all. Let's just quickly have a closer look at everything. I'll start by unpacking the hot end. No surprises here, 2 plastic bags, one with the hot end itself, and the other one with screws. Next, the print plate. Once again, no surprises, pretty much what you would expect a smooth print plate to be. Finally, let's have a look at one of the filament spools. And guess what? No surprises here either, just a 1 kilo roll of black PLA filament. So that's that, let's finally get to the big thing. Once again, I'll need a knife to get in. Very nicely packed indeed, but now I'll get rid of everything that seems unnecessary. That went reasonably well. At this point the red stickers suggest I should pull it out of the box by holding the bag, so wish me luck I guess.
A few moments later.
Okay, that took a lot more swearing than I expected, but look at that. It's here. There were a few other things hidden in the box. Let me show you. One spool of transparent filament, packed in a very camera-friendly reflective bag. A tiny boat motor. I wonder if it will fit on a benchy. Two almost empty spools of demo filament, orange and green. And that's all. And since I now have boxes and packing material all over the place, and a fancy 3D printer on a carpet floor, let me rearrange the scene a bit and come back to you. Now this looks much more like a suitable place for a 3D printer. I wonder if I can get in. There goes the top panel. That was not too bad. It also has the manual taped to it, which I'll eventually consult, but for now I'll just keep undoing stuff. The plastic wrap on the door is glued together with a substance that is still liquid. I remember Jeff Geerling just pulling it, and he got the glue all over the glass, so I'm going to learn from his mistakes and cut the plastic instead. There it goes, good as new. I mean, technically it is new, so at least I have not broken it. Yet. To keep it that way, I guess it is time to read through the manual. After a quick read, I'm ready to continue. This, for example, looks like a set of tools that might come handy later on. And in fact that later on is right now, because in order to continue, I need to undo a few screws, and just by looking at them, I am pretty sure I do not own a tiny enough hex key. I'll quickly grab it from the box, and show you the rest of the contents later. This is what I need, let's go. And just like that, I was able to free the AMS, or Automatic Material System. This is a pretty neat thing. It lets you fit the printer with 4 different filaments at the same time, and reduce the need to swap a single coil all the time. The next step is to remove a bunch of screws inside the printer. But since I literally have to put my head inside the printer, this is not a very video-friendly procedure. So using some filmmaker magic, this is what you can do after the screws are gone. And that is really it for this stage. The foam below the heat bed can only be removed after the initial self-test. The only thing you may want to double-check at this point is that you have removed all the screws and all the foam everywhere else. I guess now's as good time as any to look at the box of tools that I got the hex key from. The first thing is a control panel that I'll attach to the printer in a moment. Next, a pretty standard IECC 13 power cable. A couple cables for connecting the AMS. A spare 0.4 mm nozzle. A spool holder, which is much more useful if you do not have the AMS. Some bedtime stories, mostly in Chinese. A bag of service material, such as grease or extra screws. And finally the hex keys. This is a small one, and there was also a bigger one, that I have of course already taken out. Let's assemble the AMS next. First, I'll remove the bag of Teflon tubes. Then these two mesh-covered things, that look like some kind of air vents. They are in fact just holders for bags of desiccant, that absorb moisture from the air, and keep the filament dry. While this is absolutely crucial for some filaments, such as PA or PVA, it is much less of a concern for the common stuff, like PLA or PETG. Still, it is a nice touch, and it does not hurt to have it either way. The only thing you need to do here, is to open each mesh, remove the desiccant bag from its plastic cover, and put it back. Wonderful, now I just need some filament. Let me quickly unpack the demo spools that came with the printer. So this is the transparent one, marked as support material. For now, I don't think I'm going to use it. Here's orange. And green. Now, let's fit everything in. Removing the duct tape holding the end seems to be a little bit more challenging than it needs to be. There we go. I don't think I can make it load without being attached to the printer, so I'll just leave it hanging for now. I must admit that I kind of like the mechanism of rolling the spool. It seems much cooler than hanging it through the middle. Let me speed up through the rest. I think I did a pretty decent job here. Now let's take the whole thing back to the printer. I'll start by fitting the control panel. With that in place, let's have a look at the backside of the printer. The first interesting thing here is this hole, or channel, because apparently this printer, well, poops. At the beginning and at the end of each print, as well as during color changes, it will extrude a bit of filament, and simply let it out. So every now and then, you have to come and clean up the bits around the hole. Next I'll fit the spool holder. With the AMS, this is optional, because it will not actually hold the filament. But to me, it seems that it might come handy as just a handle for manipulating the printer. Here, rock solid. Next, the cables for the AMS controller. The 4-pin goes to the printer. And the 6-pin will go to the AMS. Then the power cable. And the glass panel to cover the top. Finally, with all that done, I can grab the AMS and lay it on top. There is no mounting mechanism, it just kind of sits there. It is also not necessary to have it on the top, you can easily have it laying on the table, just next to the printer. That seems about right, so the last couple things that remain is connecting the 6-pin connector to the AMS and connecting the Teflon filament tube to the AMS controller. And done. I think I'm now ready to power it on for the first time. I'll plug it in through a power meter, and hopefully it will be at least partially visible on the camera. Let me quickly do a minor tweak to the camera. Oh, and I almost forgot to take the peel off the display. And that is really it. I'm now ready to flip the switch. Things are immediately starting to happen, and it looks like I will be able to go through the initial setup. On the very first screen, it asks to read the manual carefully. I'd say my brief read through was good enough, so let's see what's next. It now wants me to make sure I've removed the screws that held the print bed down during shipping. I'm quite confident I did that, so let's move on. Next it wants to know where I am, most likely for Wi-Fi regulations, but you never know. I'll just go with Europe. Indeed, it now wants me to scan the QR code, connect to Wi-Fi, and register an account. I really don't want to do that, so here I'll go with Setup Later. Next the terms and conditions, and of course I agree, I want to use the printer. Now it is asking for help to improve everyone's printing, which is quite cryptic, but it sounds like automatically sending some data somewhere, and that is never a good thing. But the skip button is right there, so no complaints. And finally, I can run the initial self-test. I am not sure what exactly it will do, so before following through, I want to run the filament into the AMS, because if you remember, the spools are kind of just lying there right now. Look at that, something is happening. The manual says it might take up to 30 seconds to load each spool. And with all the colors loaded in, I can finally start the self-test. Well, that was nowhere near as interesting as I was hoping for. But anyway, with the test done, I can now remove the last bits of the shipping material. And with that done, the printer should now be ready for the first real print. Unfortunately, I got derailed, so it is now a couple days later. The printer is completely cooled down, nothing is preheated, so I'll try the first print now. And just like a Hello World program for programmers, it is mandatory that the first print for 3D printers is a benchy. The included SD card comes with example files, and what a coincidence, the benchy is one of them, so the only thing I have to do is to browse to the correct file and hit print. And so it begins. I was trying to find out if I can change the print color through the AMS, but it looks like the color selection is hard-coded in G-code, so this can only be modified in software before slicing the model. But for the example print, I do not care too much. Green benchy it is. If you want to know the power consumption, and this was too fast for you, it is around 6 watts at idle, while the maximum, during preheating, was just shy of 1000 watts, and during print it was fluctuating anywhere between 100 and 120 watts. And here it is, that took less than 30 minutes, which at least for me, is quite impressive. Let's have a closer look. I must say I'm very pleased with the print quality. Everything is very smooth, no obvious defects, no stringing, one big thumbs up. Now obviously, this is an example object that was shipped with the printer, so you must take it with a grain of salt. Luckily, I do have a few projects planned to see how good the printer really is. But I'll leave that for the future. For now, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I wish you a lot of fun with 3D printing. Oh, and if you wonder whether the boat motor that came with the printer fits on the benchy, it does not.